Conversation on Conservation is a repository of the wisdom, the experiences, the dreams of 101 people of all ages from all parts of the world about nature and what it means. 5 years ago, we realized we were coming up on the 50th anniversary of the Wilderness Act. The Wilderness Act is a major piece of legislation in that certain land is put aside and it can't have permanent residents, it can't have chainsaws, it can't have automobiles, etc. So we started by interviewing a few people on film and just asking them, tell me about getting involved in the outdoors and what it means to you in your life, etc. Over 5 years, we ended up interviewing people around the world about wilderness and about nature. We interviewed people at all levels in government, in environment.
Starting at age 9 for me, I went on these incredible 2-week camping trips every summer that were led by a woman named Mrs. Black. And I would say those experiences, 9, 10, 11 years old, shaped me more than anything else. You know, we practiced leave no trace principles before leave no trace had even been invented yet. The outdoor experiences defined who I was. It's what I chose to do. Did my first mountain climb at age 15, and that was Mount St. Helens when it was all there. Attempted Mount Rainier when I was 15, turned back in bad weather, which of course is when you really learn. And that just fueled a lifelong connection to nature and the outdoors, and I'd say a lifelong curiosity as well.
The 4 land management agencies, BLM, Fish, Forest Service, and Park Service, are working very closely together on these questions about how do we maintain connectivity for migratory wildlife, how do we work more coherently for wildfire and how it moves amongst our lands, and how we would use the Land and Water Conservation Fund to acquire properties that are critical to maintaining that ecological integrity and connectivity on the landscape.
There's something being in nature that gives you peace, that gives you childish joy, that gives you excitement.
I think nature and the beauty of nature, and I'm not a religious person, but I think it's what I would call sacred. It's something that should never be destroyed. It's something that should be appreciated.
Nothing happens on a dead planet, and you know, it's so clear to me, as it was to my father, who was so in love, as many of us are, with that picture of Earthrise from the moon, as symbolizing all these things we're talking about. This little, beautiful little planet. We haven't found anything remotely like it anywhere in the known universe. Makes you wonder, I mean, what it's all about. But here we've been given this gift, you know, this thin shell of atmosphere, so fragile, and which makes everything possible. And we're just doing our best to just trash it. And it's such a, this is such a beautiful place that we've been gifted. And we just got to start realizing it, because everything depends on it.
There's a conspiracy in this planet for life. We are fighting that conspiracy. We are trying to prove a system wrong that was designed to be right and to nurture life. I don't understand why. You cannot fight the earth. You have to flow with its tide. You have to walk with its winds. You have to cherish it. You cherish it, you protect it, it'll nourish you.
But I think we are all united in our sense that the protection of wild places is essential for the survival of humanity. And we believe that that is something we must commit ourselves to in order to be sure that all future generations have the opportunity to know the call of the wild.
We ended up interviewing a lot of senior people in Washington, but we've interviewed people in Salamanca, Spain. We've interviewed people in California. We found when we were in Salamanca, Spain, that people don't admire our politics or our military might or our economics. They admire our relationship to the land. And the question is, how did we do that?
Our national parks belong to the people. They don't just belong to those who are wealthy or the noble men of this country. And I think that's why our national parks are such a great idea. Around the world, I think people view the United States of America as an example of what we have done in our national parks. I've traveled to many countries around the world. When I am at a place like Brazil, meeting with the foreign minister and other ministers there in the past, they always remark on how it is that we have nearly 300 million visitors a year to our national parks, yet in Brazil they have only about 4 million visitors a year. National parks really are the crown jewels of a nation, at least here in the United States, and for us they fall into two categories. The first is the crown jewels of the natural resources, places like Glacier and Yosemite, Acadia National Parks. And secondly, the history of our nation, whether it's the Civil War battlefields or the history of Asian Americans in Washington or the Japanese internment camps. We are the custodians of America's natural resources as crown jewels, also the custodians of America's natural heritage through the celebration of the heritage of this country.
It is a mystery why it has taken us so long to begin to appreciate the importance of the blue part of the planet. In all the unfriendly options that there are out there in the rest of the universe, there's this little magic blue speck that works in our favor. And water is the key. And most of that water is in the ocean. And it's not just water, it's a living system. And it generates most of the oxygen. Trees matter, grass matters, ferns, moss, all the other photosynthetic things on the planet that have shaped the world in our favor. But the ocean gives us most of the oxygen, takes up carbon dioxide, shapes planetary chemistry. It's a thermoregulator, drives climate and weather. If we disrupt the way the ocean works, it's our life support system that we have put at risk. We couldn't see that, so we didn't care. We thought of the ocean as a way. It's that, in fact, so many people who've never seen the ocean, they just didn't understand that even if you don't see it, if you don't touch it, the ocean touches you, touches every living thing with every breath you take, every drop of water that supports you. You're connected to the ocean.
We're putting a short bio, essentially what it used to be on a card catalog at a library. And we're placing this in 2 repositories. One is the Denver Public Library, and the other's the David Brower office in Golden, so that future scholars can say, how did they do this? How did they preserve this? Conversation on conservation is one of those repositories of wisdom. Now, if you want to sit down and write a biography of Teddy Roosevelt or Thomas Jefferson, I can send you to the right libraries because it's all written down. But it's not written down anymore. Cell phones and emails and all that disappear. But looking at somebody's face and having them talk about something that matters to them really matters a great deal.
We are hunters. We are wilderness animals. And it's so close to us, we can't see it. That's the core thing that drives me. What will make people see it? Feel it. Because once they do that, they won't destroy it.
Sometimes when you look at the odds, and the personal and the worldwide odds, and you think that, geez, you really thought we're going to make it, and you wonder if you're just deluding yourself and wasting your life and your money. And stressing your relationships. And when you're down and out, I say to myself, I'd rather be among the league of people that are doing something than among the league of people that don't care.
All of us ought to not look at conservation and wilderness as something that we talk about episodically or for a film. It ought to be a regular aspect of our lives that we talk about around the dinner table, that we talk about in our day-to-day lives, that, because it is the inspiration that made America great. I mean, wilderness is the crucible upon which this country was built. And unlike European nations or other nations of the world, we still have that reminder of what made America, of how we tested our mettle and became a great country. We still have aspects of that in this country, in places like the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and the Frank Church Wilderness, and in places like Bristol Bay, Alaska. And we have an opportunity here, if we keep wilderness front of mind, to make sure that those places remain intact. And other countries don't have that opportunity. And that is an extraordinary legacy that we should not let go of. We should fight to hold on to that with everything we have.